Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to do our first project. Now I'm going to do this differently. The instructions tell us that we should do it on CodePen. I don't think that this is the best idea. I think if you can get Git working and then make it in Git Pages, you'll be able to develop a portfolio initially and you'll start getting open source credits. So we're going to make this using GitHub and Git Pages. And I'm just going to walk through this. This is the first time me doing a project like this, so all together in one movement. So this might be kind of a longer video than you're used to. But so what we want to do is design, we want to build something that's similar to this CodePen. So if we look at this CodePen, it's a attribute, it's got an image, it's got a timeline, an unordered list, with elements inside of it. It's got a block quotes area here, and then it has a link to a Wikipedia page. Interesting. You can use HTML, JavaScript, and CSS to complete this project. Plain CSS is recommended because that is what the lesson has covered so far, and you should get some practice with plain CSS. You can use Bootstrap or Sass if you choose, but I think we'll just stick with plain CSS because from the scope of this, it's better to just keep it simple and just show mastery of this technology that we've learned so far. Additional technologies like jQuery, React, or Angular. Using React on this is completely insane. That's like, why on earth would you make such a difficult choice on such a simple project? jQuery would make sense, but we haven't even really gone over JavaScript in depth yet, so I don't think we'll do any of this. I think we'll just use HTML and CSS. Other projects will get, okay, they're not recommended. Yeah, that's not a good idea. Other projects will give you a chance to work on these technology stacks. Yeah, we can work on stuff like React later. We will accept and try to fix all issues, report, and suggested technology. Okay. So first off, I think that we should just start. I like to press Command Spacebar and then start in the terminal. So I'll open up my terminal here. If I change directories to the desktop and I list out, I've only got 3 folders on my desktop, so that's why you only see Code Life and Multimedia. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say make dir, and I'm going to call it tribute page. And so that pops up this folder here, and I want to change directories into the tribute page. And then what I want to do is I want to call a index.html file. And then I'm going to say open, and as an application, I'm going to choose Atom, which is my text editor. And I'm going to say index.html. And so that's going to cause index to open in Atom. And now what I can do next is I can go, instead of doing that, I'm pressing up to get the last command that I made in the terminal, just the up arrow key. And then I'm cycling back and I'm saying Google Chrome. So now I'm opening in an application of Google Chrome the index.html. And you'll see that pops up here. Now, this is nothing. It's blank right now. So what I need to do is just write something like tribute page. If I save this and I refresh here, there you go. We've got our tribute page running, and we're good to go. So now what we have is a development environment. When I save this index file, then it shows up here if I refresh the page. So this is what it looks like when you open this index page with a text editor, and this is what it looks like when you open it with Google Chrome. So let's see. My tribute page should have an element with the corresponding ID main, which contains all other elements. Okay, cool. So, well, we know I'm just going to do some HTML stuff because I kind of remember this, but this is from HTML5, a book that I read. And this is just sort of basically how the internet's built right now. So you want to have a head and a body tag. And then just close the body. And then inside of this, inside of the tribute page, we want to have an element with a corresponding ID equals main. which contains all other items. So I think what we could do is just go a div and then ID equals main, and then close div. And then, so this fulfills the first user story. So if I save this, this won't actually do anything yet, but if I inspect the contents, you'll see that we've got a div with the ID of main, and that's got the whole tribute page element inside of it. So we can scratch off user story number 1. Number 2, I should see an element with a corresponding ID title, which contains a string, so some text that describes the subject of the tribute page. So in this one, it's Dr. Norman Borlaug. Cool. And so we can make this an H1 element, and we want the ID to be title. And what should we make our tribute page for? I'm thinking Jimi Hendrix is the way to go. Okay, cool. So if I save this and I come back over here, you can see Jimi Hendrix with the title of ID. Cool. Number 2 is taken care of. I should see a div element with a corresponding ID image div. Okay, so what we want to do is come down here and write div ID equals image img div. Close div. I save that. With each image div element, I should see an image element with a corresponding ID. Okay, this one's complete. So now we can scroll down. Within the image div element, I should see an image element. So, oh, how do you do that? I'm just going to Google that image. Yeah, there we go. So image source is equal to, and then the alt text for people, image of Jimi Hendrix portrait. Okay, so what? But the source is empty right now, and that's not awesome, right? We want to make it so that it works here. So if I just Googled this is a really awesome one. Okay, so there's 2 ways that I could add this here. Now, this is actually just the URL of this image. And so if I were to add this here, our page would probably work. If we come over here. Yeah. Now, this is great, but what happens if whoever runs this image01.military.com website, if they make it so that their website's no longer serving this image, or if they change the image somehow? Well, then this web page would break. And so what we want to do is just save this image to our tribute page folder. And in there, I'm going to press Command-Shift-N to make a new folder. And I'm going to make a folder called Images. And then I'm going to save Jimi Hendrix portrait into that folder. And normally it's going to look like, I must have made the directory in the long one. So I'm going to drag the images folder into the tribute page. And so now we have the image in a folder. And then what we can do is come over here. And I think that we can actually just go images / Jimi Hendrix portrait. .jpg. Cool. And then if we save that, if we come back over to our page and we refresh, we see now instead of sourcing the image from the internet, it's actually pulling it off of our hard drive. Cool. Let's see here. I think we could go, what to do next? Oh, we'll just keep moving along with the things. So now within the image div, I should see an image element with a corresponding ID of image. So they want the ID to be of an image here as well. So the ID is image. And if we come over here, inspect the page, after refreshing, we can see that the ID is image. And moving on, the image div element, I should see within the image div, within image div element, I should see an element with a corresponding ID of image caption that contains textual content describing the image shown in image div. So I think we can do a paragraph element and make it ID is equal to image caption, and then close that, and then say one of the greatest guitar players ever. Now if I save this, and I'm actually going to make this emphasized, so the EM just makes it so that it's italicized, right? And so if we save this here, we can refresh the page, and we'll see now we have that. And if we inspect the contents, we can see that the image caption is set in there. And so we've fulfilled the desires of this guy, image caption, image caption. Is that right? IMG caption, IMG caption, cool. Next one, I should see an element with a corresponding ID tribute info, which contains textual content describing the subject of the tribute page. Okay, cool. So underneath this image div, I think we'll create a new div with an ID of tribute info. And then we'll close this div. And within here, I think what we should do is just get Castles Made of Sand lyrics. Okay, cool. So these are the Castles Made of Sand lyrics. And I'm just going to type these down. I'm going to copy all of these and throw them into here for now. Now, this should be wrapped in a paragraph element, in my opinion, but we're going to have to do something a little bit more to organize this efficiently. So if I come back over to my index page and refresh, you can see that because I haven't formatted it all in HTML, this is all just getting broken down into one line. And so we want to just change the way that we're doing this. What would be a good way to do this? Here I'm just going to press Command, and I'm just going to select each line. This is a tool for Atom, and it just makes it so that you can do things quite quickly. And I'm going to go P. And I'm pressing Command and an arrow button to get to the end, and then I can go close P. And then if I press Escape, and then I've got a P element on each one of these items. And then if I refresh this page, now I've got a cool... Now everything's spaced out properly. Interesting. Yeah. And so here they said that the tribute info, this is a div for tribute info. And if we come over here and we inspect the source, we can see the tribute info is all within this. It's not on the image div, but it's on the tribute info. And that keeps dividing up our information intelligently. So I should see an A element with a corresponding tribute link. Cool. And so here we can say, we can have a href is equal to Jimi Hendrix Wiki. This is the link to Jimi Hendrix Wiki. We want to do a target is equal to underscore blank so that it opens in a new window. Learn more about Jimi Hendrix. And then I'm missing, you want the anchor element to have an ID of tribute link. And so I want to add that in there as well, which links to an outside site that contains additional information about the subject. You give your element an attribute target and set it to underscore blank to open it in a new window. Cool. So if we come over to our page again and we refresh, you can see we've got a very simple looking web page. And if we click here, we go opened in a new window to the Wikipedia page. So user story number 7 is taken care of. And then we've got user story number 8. The image element should responsively resize relative to the width of its parent element without exceeding the original size. So, interesting. Let's go back up to our image element and we can say, well, now we could start writing CSS to do that. Do we remember that from the Flexbox? Create a responsive image gallery with Flexbox. We don't really need to. How to create a responsive image grid. Oh, that's cool. Okay, so what they've got here is a collection of images. So yeah, let's do that. Let's get some more Jimi Hendrix images. You can save this image. What do you call that? That's like vivid colors. So now I'm just saving these. Save image as Jimi Hendrix points. And I'm just saving a collection of them. Hendrix at Woodstock. This might not have been in Woodstock. That's the Woodstock picture. Hendrix black and white. Jimi Hendrix plays guitar behind head. Oh no, that's some weird file format. I don't want to do that one. Oh, that's cool. I haven't seen that picture before. Jimi Hendrix, cool jacket. Jimi Hendrix smoking. Oh, the size of this one's huge. I actually don't want to use that one. Black and white. B and W portrait. This one's cool too. What's it? Jimi Hendrix in hotel room. And you'll notice I made a mistake. I used dashes in here, and then up here I used underscores. I want to stick with the dashes, just because when writing web applications, it's important to just kind of get conventions and then stick to them. That way, it's easier to just read your code when everything's like that. You don't have to constantly be checking back. You can just see that. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've got 9 images. So we should be able to do a responsive image grid and just copy this into there. And so, yeah, I think that this, we can take it. We've got our image div, image caption here. We have our image. We have an ID of image. Okay, so maybe what we want to do is just copy this a bunch of times. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Was it 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 8, 9. Okay, so now we have a lot of extra images. And then we can just throw them in by copying the file name. I'm just adding in, making the alt text. Oh, and I made a mistake here, images. I'm making the alt text fit as well. Black and white. Black and white portrait. Jimi Hendrix with a cool jacket. Jimi Hendrix in hotel room. Jimi Hendrix points at you. Jimi Hendrix portrait. Jimi Hendrix portrait with guitar. Jimi Hendrix smoking. Now, if I save this, we should see all these images in here. Okay. We can see at concert and in hotel room isn't working. So Jimi Hendrix at concert. And what was the other one? Jimi Hendrix in hotel room. It's a JPEG. So if I save this, I think that those images will work. Cool, we've got the in hotel room. And now we see all our images are of these random sizes, right? And so we want to add CSS to them to make them look better. So, wait, what's this one? HTML images. Oh, this is that old thing I was looking at. So I'm going to close this window. We don't need any more images. We've got the lyrics saved. I can just open that easily. Interesting. Okay, so they create a row and then they've got a column. Then they've got a column. Wedding rocks underwater. Let's see. Column, wedding.jpg, rock, and falls. Wedding, rock, falls. Okay. So they're basically just making a 2-column row here. So let's do that. Let's go div class equals row. And then we pop out half of these. And then close that div. So that's the first row, and then div class equals row. And we close that div. No, we want to just make this actually a column. Close this div, div class column. And then we just need to close up the divs. You'll notice that I keep my spacing consistent each time because it makes it so you don't make mistakes as to like forgetting that if you're in a row or a column. And so if we save this, let's see what our index looks like. Okay, interesting. It changed things, but I don't know how it changed it. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that we've got anything going wrong at this point, because what we need to do is add the CSS flexbox to create a responsive layout. So 4 equal columns. Interesting. Well, here's what I'm going to do. Is I'm just going to copy this in. I'm just going to legitimately use this code, paste it in, and then just adjust it as needed. So I'm going to save that. And for now, we'll just put it all on one page. So we'll say style, and then close style. This is just going to be setting the CSS for our the rest of our page. Now, if I save this, my guess is that this is going to change quite dramatically. Okay, cool, yeah. So copying this code in has actually just made our images basically fit well. And it's, yeah, they're responsive. They actually break and everything. So let's look through the CSS and see what it's saying. Now, in my text editor, I actually don't like the way that this looks because the style, the CSS, I can't see the colors. It's basically, I like to have my CSS colored. So like we can link this into a different link CSS via with HTML tag. You'll notice I Google stuff even if I could probably guess what it was. So I'm just going to copy this in here. And instead of having that big style thing, I'm just going to say link the style sheet, the type text CSS, and the ref. What I'm going to do is add the path. So I'm going to create a folder called CSS, and then I'm going to say slash tribute page, tribute.css. And so I'll save that. Now this links, if you look in the structure here, this index page is going to look for a folder called CSS, and then it's going to look for a file called tribute.css. So first I need to Command Shift N, and then put make a folder called CSS. And then within that, I'm going to add a file that's CSS. So if I'm still here, I'm in tribute page. So what I can do is I can go touch CSS slash tribute.css. And that will actually open up a CSS file. And if I double click that, I've got it set so my Atom opens it up here automatically. And now what I can do is just take all this code that I copied from the internet and throw it into my tribute.css folder. Now that I've got the CSS suffix, file suffix on it, you can see that it's colorful and it makes it so it's easier to code here. This is still the exact same code from last time. And if I go back to here, we shouldn't see any change. So what's happening is if we inspect the element, we can see that the sources are, the images are here, and then the CSS is here. So this web page is all, the browser is reading all of this stuff and linking it up properly. And it's also going out to the internet. Okay. Responsively resize relative to the width of its parent element without exceeding its original size. So we've got that going. If we come down and we make it small, we've got a responsive page. And let's go back here. The image element should respond relative to the width of its parent element. Yeah, well, we did that. The image element should be centered within its parent element. The image element should be centered within its parent element. Center image via, well, let's see. What do I have in here? Now, what was that thing that we were able to do? This is the responsive image grid. I actually want this whole element to be centered. This whole row. Can I go like this and just make it super simple? So what I'm doing is just doing it in HTML to see if it works. Save that and come over here. It worked for this guy. It didn't work for this image flexbox. So I'm going to undo all the center conversation and going to try to find a way. Let's see here. This is the row, column. Basically, I want to add like an empty column would actually almost work. Let's have a look at the CSS. So I'm looking at the row, display flex, flex wrap, padding, column, flex, max width 25, padding 0.4. So we create 4 equal columns that sit next to each other. It's saying that it creates 4. So I wonder if we were to, if I wanted to just make 4 columns, I could do this. And then wonder what that does. 3. Save that. I kind of like the way that looks more. Just going to take 2 of the images. I'm going to press Command and Control and just move these 2 images up there. So I've got 4 here, 3 here, and 2 here. See what happens if I save that. Cool. Now I just want to move one of these images down here. So I've got 3, 3, and 3. Nice. Now I want to figure out how to center columns. Was it a responsive using Flexbox? CSS image grid responsive. Image grid CSS centered. Horizontally centered. You can use grid properties on the image and text as well. Just make the parent a grid container. We're not using grid, we're using Flexbox. Oh yeah, this is what we want. Box flex. Box flex. Justify content center. Oh, I remember that from the thing. So what we want to do is make our image div justify content center. And I save this. This will change the CSS on. If we come back to the index page, it didn't work. Display block. Do I have the right image? Yes, image div. I want to make sure I save this, and then I'm going to refresh this page. Image div. Center. It's not coming out center. I'm just going to do some basic stuff like style equals margin auto. I wonder if I just created a... Okay, that didn't work, so I'm just going to get rid of that. Let's see if I just create an empty column. Okay, awesome. That's what I wanted to do. So it does four columns. So I'm going to get rid of these guys. And so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then at the end, I'm going to say div class equals column. And then close it. And this just makes it so we've got 2 empty columns on either side. And then we've got our centered text. And it's responsive if we grow it and shrink the page. That's pretty cool. What does it look like on mobile? Command-Shift-I and check it out on mobile. Oh, nice. It kind of keeps changes its direction. Okay, so it looks kind of cool on mobile and it looks kind of cool on desktop. Nice. All right, so we've got relative to the width of its parent element without exceeding its original size. Check, we've got that. The image element should be centered within its parent element. We've got that. We're kind of doing it specially, but the way we're doing it is so cool that makes sense. You can build your project by forking this CodePen, or you can use the CDN link to test in any environment you like. CDN. Once you're done, I wonder what this means. By forking this CodePen project. Okay, so bundled.js. I'm going to actually add this JavaScript into our head as well. And maybe we'll be able to see if my deploying using GitHub is going to work. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to center everything here. That's not the most ideal way of doing things, but I think it'll work for this. Yeah. For our purposes here. And I think we could change this to be, if we make the image caption, we can say font size and set that equal to 30 pixels. And this will make the image caption. Oh, it's I set it as a ID. Okay, so I'm moving this down here. I've got my image caption here, and the image caption is here. What I did here was I used a period instead of a pound sign. ID is for pound, classes are period. So I wasn't able to get this font size to change up from this 12 font to 30 font because I was selecting the wrong class. So if I save this and I refresh here, you can see now it's got 30. It's a much bigger font because it's reading off of this CSS class. And yeah, CSS align center. Oh, cool. What we could do is instead of putting the center around it, we could create a class called center. Get rid of the border. Margin auto. Okay, cool. So now we have a class called center. So if I save this, what we can do is instead of saying center, I can go class, because it's a period, and then I can say is equal to center. And if I save this, one of the greatest guitar players of all time, this should change. One of the greatest guitar players ever. Okay, and that's being done with the CSS. So the cool thing about using that is I can come up here and add a class equal to center on the Jimi Hendrix on the top. So it used to be like this, but I can refresh, and now it's in the center. It's sort of in the center. Wonder why it's only there. Interesting. Margin auto width 50. Oh, this one's actually in the same spot as well. So these images. Instead of centering this, I could just go class is equal to center. And I can center the link as well. Doesn't look like I can do that actually. I have to put this in its own division. And then we've got learn more about Jimi Hendrix. And we could tribute link. We could change the tribute link a little bit by going using the pound selector to get the ID, and then change that to be font color is equal to red. Font color, that's not right. Oh, it's just color. And then we've got the red font. I like pound CC1234. It's just like the color that I use for things. And we can make it like font weight bold. Let's see if there's anything else on this centering. The text is centered. Text align center. There we go. That's what we want. So in here, we can say text align center. And maybe this is going to give us what we're looking for. Yeah. Okay, cool. You notice how it changed it all. This is the powerful thing about CSS, is that you've changed this one. You've agreed that you want center to look like this specific thing. And then when you change it here, it actually reflects all across the whole page. And so that's a really powerful reason to use CSS styling. And so, yeah, I've got it. I mean, if we look at the file structure, we've got a CSS file, we've got images, and we have an index. We've fulfilled all the user stories for the free code camp request. And so they want us to add a link to our solution. Now, what we need to do in order to get this solution to work, we need to deploy this to the internet. So I'm going to close all this because we're done in development, and now we're going to go into deployment phase. So I'm going to use GitHub. What I'm going to do is I'm listing out where I am. If I go PWD, you see I'm in the tribute page. So what I want to do is go git init, git init. And it says initialize an empty Git repository. If you come up to an error right now, you probably have to go through a phase of setting up Git, which there will be another video. I'll link it in the description. But for now, I'm just going to move on. So what we want to do is go to GitHub. And I'm just going to go to my page right away. You'll want to do it. This is going to be your own GitHub, whatever that is. And then I'm going to create a new repository. And I'm going to call it Jimi Hendrix Tribute page, a Jimi Hendrix tribute page. It's going to be public. We can initialize it with a README, but I don't want to do that. I'm just going to create the repository. Okay, cool. So now that we've got the repository here, they're saying, quick setup, you've done this kind of thing before. You can create a new repository on the command line. We don't want to do that. We want to push an existing repository from the command line. So we want to say git remote add this guy. And you might come up with an error here because you haven't signed in. You'll have to just work through that. But for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm just going to push it up. And so now I can say, I'm going to check in here and I'm going to say git status. It shows me that these files have not been checked in because they're red. And I'm actually going to remove this .dsstore file because I don't like those. So now if I go git status, I've only got these three. And so what I want to do is git add the period, which means add all of them. If I go git status now, you'll see that I've added all of these files to my staging. I'm getting ready to commit them. So I can say git commit-m. So I'm going to commit these with a message. Add a Jimi Hendrix tribute page. Okay, so now if I go git status, it says nothing because we haven't done anything. So if I go git log, I can see that I've made one commit and it's set up here. So if I go git push, I'm pushing it. Oh, git push set upstream origin master. The current branch has no upstream master. To push the current branch and set the remote as upstream, use this. So I'm just going to say git push set upstream origin master status. And if I go git status now, it's like your branch is up to date with origin master. Now if I refresh this page, now my file is actually here. And so I pushed this to GitHub. And so now if you click the index page, you can see this is the page that we wrote. And then this is our images. Our image files are all here. And our CSS is here. And one other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add, touch a README, readme.md, and then I'm going to open that with Atom. And so I'm just going to say, this is a Jimi Hendrix tribute page. It makes up the first part of my coding portfolio. Enjoy. And if I save this README file and go git status, you'll see that I've got a README here. So I'm going to go git add the README. And I'm going to say git commit-m. I'm going to say add README. And git push. You see now, if I refresh this page, this is where GitHub just automatically shows you the README. And so this is how you can make notes and kind of talk to people about what you're doing. Okay, so this is all great. The thing is, now what we want to use is GitHub Pages. We've pushed our project to GitHub, and now we want to use GitHub Pages to display it for the internet. So we can go to Settings, and then we scroll down to where it says GitHub Pages. And GitHub Pages is currently disabled. Select a source below to enable GitHub Pages for this repository. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to go to master branch. And then the page refreshes. If I scroll down, there's a link. And this link, if I open it in a new tab, now this takes a little bit because it's actually getting pushed to the internet now. But for the time being, we can just assume this works. So I copy this link and I'm actually going to move it. And then in the README, I'm going to add, you can see this project live at the following URL. Now if I save that and I come back over here and go git status, git add, I'm adding the README, git commit, add GitHub, add live URL to the README. And then I git push that. These are just commit messages. It's good to just make a message about whatever it is that you've done last. And then, yeah, if I come back over here to the original page, you can see I've got the link here. And if I click that, we've got our Jimi Hendrix tribute page. And this is actually on the internet. And a really cool thing about doing it this way is that you're going to start developing your GitHub portfolio. And so if you check out repositories, you can see that this is on my Jimi Hendrix tribute page. And if I scroll down, you can see I've got a little bit of credit here. It's kind of cool to develop this thing in GitHub, because the more history you have of committing things, a lot of these are private commits that we did as an organization when we're building web apps. And then some of these are just private commits. So as you can see, I haven't been coding as much lately as I was for the last few months. But this is actually live, so anybody on the internet could see this. So if you're ever looking for a job or something and you want to be able to show your work, it's cool to kind of be able to see that. So anyone could come to GitHub / this page and see what I've been working on. They can see that I've got a lot of experience doing this, and they can see various different projects. And so the really cool thing about this is as you get longer in your coding experience, if you have a developed GitHub page, you can just link to your old projects. And so this becomes one little part of a portfolio. Just a super simple one, but it kind of shows your ability to, make a web page from scratch. And this one actually looks cool on mobile as well. So, I think that's kind of cool. And I think this makes more sense than CodePen, because if you share CodePen projects as part of your portfolio, I don't think it looks as professional as if you show some GitHub projects. You're like, oh, look at this one that I was able to put together in an hour or two. And then over here, I'm going to take this link that I got from the settings page, and I'll just add it here, and I'll say I've completed the challenge. And it looks like we're complete. So yeah, that's the first project. What do you call that one? The portfolio project. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see you in the next one.